Hello everyone, this is Mr. Combs, and in this video I want to have an introduction to drama. And this video will be full of information, and we're going to jump around from topic to topic because there's a lot to say about drama in the 2 weeks we have to study it. According to Pickering and Hopper, when we speak of drama, we mean a story in dialogue performed by actors on a stage before an audience. In other words, a play. We also use the word drama in a more general sense to refer to the literary genre that encompasses all written plays and to the profession of writing, producing, and performing plays. Nowadays, most literary scholars include radio and television performances as well as films in the definition of drama. So plays, but then also radio dramas, television series, and films. Unlike fiction and poetry, which can be thought of as an exchange between two individuals, the author or poet, and the reader, drama is a community art form. The actors deliver and act out the words written by the playwright in costumes and on a set suggested by the playwright, but designed by costumers, set and lighting designers, and properties masters. So, properties or props are all of the items that are used in a play. So the set designer will design the walls, the large furniture, how things should be arranged, but the properties master is usually the person who goes, and if there are dishes used, they will design or find the dishes someplace. If there's a gun used, the properties master will take care of getting that. And times that I have done theater, that I've been involved in a theatrical production, I was the properties master. Also, drama is addressed not to an individual reader, but to a group of spectators. Furthermore, because drama incorporates the visual arts, fashion, interior design, lighting, music, dance and movement, and oratory, Pickering and Hopper suggest a drama only becomes a complete work of art when it is seen on the stage or screen, and the written text of a play is only its skeletal frame. So you might ask, why are we reading plays in a literature class rather than viewing performances of them? Well, there are several reasons for this. Pickering and Hopper remind us that the script is the only permanent part of a play. The rest is ephemeral. It changes to some degree with each night's performance, and to a considerable extent with each new production. Kennedy and Gioia add that sometimes reading a play is the only option we have. They state, even if you live in a large city with many theaters, even if you attend a college with many theatrical productions, to succeed in your lifetime in witnessing, for example, all the plays of Shakespeare might well be impossible. In print, they are as near to hand as a book on a shelf, ready to be enacted on the stage of the mind. Furthermore, reading a play is often the only way to experience it as the playwright wrote it. Directors often change plays to fit their particular visions by adding, cutting, or rearranging material. Finally, reading a play allows us to engage with it more fully. We can return to passages again and again for close analysis in a way not afforded to us as we view a performance. Now, it is true that most plays are meant to be performed, but there are plays called closet dramas. And these are plays that are not meant to be enacted, but just meant to be read. In John Milton's play, Samson Agonistes, about the biblical figure is such a play. The two main components of a play are the dialogue between the characters and the stage directions, the playwright's instructions for facial and vocal expression, movement and action, gesture, body language, stage and costume appearance, and lighting. And traditionally, plays are divided into acts. According to Harman and Holman, the ancient Greeks used a 5-act structure, and this convention was common until the late 19th century, when under the influence of Ibsen, the 4th and 5th acts were combined. Since the end of the 19th century, the standard form for serious drama has been 3 acts, and for musical comedy and comic opera, usually 2. But there's great variation in plays, even throughout history. We're going to be reading a French neoclassical play called The Imaginary Invalid that has only 3 acts, and it was written well before the 19th century. An act is typically divided into various scenes, and a new scene usually indicates a change in time, setting, or characters on stage. While we were right to make a distinction between drama, fiction, and poetry earlier, drama does share some characteristics with the other 2 literary genres. According to Pickering and Hopper, drama, like poetry, is meant to be heard. As a result, like a poem, it sometimes makes use of the oral qualities of rhythm and rhyme. Indeed, early plays, such as those of ancient Greece, the medieval morality plays, and the great Renaissance dramas, were written in verse. And in the 1930s and 40s, modernist poet, critic, and playwright T.S. Eliot returned to the verse drama for his plays Murder in the Cathedral and The Cocktail Party. And The Cocktail Party is based in part on the play Alcestis by Euripides, and we will read Alcestis this semester. Furthermore, because a play depicts a story, it also has much in common with fiction. As with fiction, when we read a play or see a play, we are concerned with plot, the exposition, rising action, climax, denouement, suspense and foreshadowing, character, round and flat characters or even stock characters, dynamic or static characters, protagonists and antagonists, and setting, the time, the place, and the culture. Recall that Freytag's pyramid was first used to break down dramas rather than works of fiction, and we can use Freytag's pyramid as we read the dramas we're going to be reading this semester. Let's talk a little bit about characterization. The playwright approaches characterization a little differently than does the novelist or short story writer. Since the characters will be portrayed by actors and seen by the audience, there is no need to include physical descriptions of them in the dialogue of the play. Sometimes when a playwright wants to ensure a particular look, descriptions of the characters will be included in the stage directions. However, these are guidelines for the actors and director rather than information for the viewer. Pickering and Hopper contend that the playwright cannot analyze their characters' personalities and motives directly and concisely. An omniscient inquiry into how and why a character speaks, moves, and thinks as he or she does is both desirable and entertaining in a work of fiction, but it is not easy to present through dialogue on stage. Instead, a dramatist individualizes the characters by giving them distinctive habits or quirks of speech and by allowing them to express their personalities through action. Everything a character says and does in a dramatic work is of the utmost importance. In fact, when characters speak in a play, they usually reveal information or provide insight about three different people: the person speaking, the person being spoken about, and the person being addressed. Daniel and Saphir call this the playwright's basic method for building several characterizations economically. Consider these lines spoken by Julius Caesar in Act 2 of Shakespeare's play about the Roman leader. So Julius Caesar says, "Forget not in your speed, Antonius, to touch Calpurnia, for our elders say the barren, touched in this holy chase, shake off their sterile curse." So, and Antony, whom Caesar calls Antonius, is about to compete in a chariot race, and Caesar is addressing him and talking about Caesar's wife, Calpurnia. So notice in these lines, we learn something about Caesar. We learn he is superstitious. We learn he's religious, right? He says our elders say. So this is an old folk tale, right, or an old wives' tale. But he also says in this holy chase. He seems to respect Antony, right? So he thinks Antony can do this. We also learn that Calpurnia is unable to have children, right? That's important to Caesar because he wants to have an heir. And we learn that Antony is athletic as well as Caesar's friend, right? Because Caesar would not ask someone to touch his wife as he goes by in the chariot race if they were not close. Plays often make use of what we call ancillary characters. These are characters who highlight characteristics of the protagonist or provide insight into the action of the play. One type of ancillary character is the foil. The foil provides insight into the protagonist's character. The characters Wednesday Addams and Enid St. Clair from the Netflix show Wednesday are foils to each other. These roommates are often depicted together in the show, and this underscores their differences. The character Hamlet from Shakespeare's play has many foils. His uncle Claudius is one of them. Hamlet continually refuses to take action to avenge his father's death, but Claudius, in contrast, doesn't hesitate to act. He kills his brother. He assumes the throne, marries his sister-in-law, right? So Claudius is full of action, but Hamlet refuses to act. And those differences are highlighted by putting those characters or depicting those characters together. Another type of ancillary character is the choric figure. A chorus is a singing and dancing group of background characters who perform as part of a dramatic production. The chorus was originally an important part of ancient Greek theater. It provided needed information to the audience and commented on the action of the play. Choruses are not common in theater after the Greeks, but are still used occasionally, especially in musical theater. A choric figure comes out of that choral tradition and is a single character, often a confidant of the protagonist, who expresses ideas about the play's major issues and actions. The choric figure is often separated in some way from the main action of the play. So I have highlighted here two choric figures, well, really three choric figures. King Lear's fool is a famous choric figure, and the fool comments on Lear's actions, criticizing them when Lear goes too far. Another choric figure, or another set of choric figures, is Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets. They sit in the balcony apart from the show and comment rather negatively about the performances on stage. The narrative voice, or the voice telling the story in a fictional piece, is absent in a play. Some plays do have a character called the narrator, but that character usually does not serve the same function as the narrator of a piece of fiction. Instead, playwrights show action rather than describe it. A playwright cannot tell us what a character is thinking. The characters must do that for themselves. There are several techniques a dramatist can use to convey the thoughts of characters on stage. These techniques help the playwright provide direct insight into motives, attitudes, and overall tone. One technique is the monologue. A monologue is an extended speech given by a single character while other characters are on stage or on screen. So Blanche Dubois from Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire, she gives a speech describing Stanley's animal nature, and she delivers it in the presence of her sister Stella, as well as to Stanley, who is eavesdropping on the conversation from the other room. So that's an example of a monologue. A soliloquy, in contrast to a monologue, is an extended speech given by a character who is usually alone on stage or screen. A soliloquy reveals a character's thoughts and feelings directly to the audience. During this speech, if other characters are on stage, the audience understands that these characters do not hear the soliloquy deliverer's revelations. So a monologue is meant to be heard, right? A monologue is a character giving an extensive or extended speech to other characters. But a soliloquy is a person thinking out loud. So if there are other characters on stage, it is generally understood that they do not hear what the character delivering the soliloquy is saying. The general understanding is time stops during a soliloquy, because the character is articulating thoughts that might flash through a person's mind in the span of only a few seconds. Many of Shakespeare's characters deliver soliloquies. For example, before Juliet drinks the potion that will make her appear to be dead, she, alone in her chamber, goes over in her mind all the ways the plan for her secret marriage to Romeo could go wrong. And likewise in the musical Into the Woods by Stephen Sondheim, Cinderella sings on the steps of the palace, and time stops as she wonders if she should let herself be captured by the prince or if she should continue to run away. And finally, an aside is a short line given by a character to him or herself or directly to the audience that is not heard by the other characters on stage. When Claudius addresses Hamlet early in Shakespeare's play, before he responds, Hamlet says as an aside to the audience, "A little more than kin, a little less than kind," revealing that he knows about his uncle's scheming.